On your Friday episode of Locked On Raptors, there's no time for a flowery intro. We have way too many mailbag questions to get to. Start the podcast, damn it!
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Friday, September the 5th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. And you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join as always. We'd love to see you become part of our listener family. And on today's show, you'll see exactly what being in the mailbag chat in the Discord means. You get your questions answered on the podcast. What a wonderful thing. All you got to do, join the Discord. Again, $0 of cost. You jump in there, you drop your questions in the mailbag chat, and then they appear in the podcast if they're good. It's that simple. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is closer than you think. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app to get started. And we will get started here on a loaded end of offseason mailbag edition of the podcast. As I've alluded to, we got a whole bunch of questions. I think 15 questions, which means like 5 per segment, 2 per minute over the course of this podcast. I'm wasting time simply doing the setup. We'll get to the questions in a sec. Just some housekeeping. This is the last day of what I call the off season for this podcast, as we'll be back to 5 days a week next week after being down to 3 a week throughout the summer. It's the beginning of my 10th season on this show covering the Toronto Raptors. Man, am I an old fart. And next week we will have a whole bunch of pre-canned episodes as I'm going on vacation, baby. And so I've got episodes talking about some of the middle of the pack Eastern Conference teams with people who cover those teams. Lots of Locked On hosts in there. Our pal Trill Bro Dude from You Know Ball talking Sixers as well. All Monday through Friday. Pacers, Pistons, Bucks, Heat, and Sixers all on deck. Looking forward to that very much. They're all very good shows. They're already recorded. I can tell you they're excellent. So with that out of the way, let's get to today's mailbag, where again, I just kind of wanted to let you freaks cook and send in as many questions as possible. And I'm just going to rattle through as many as I can here to close out the off season in the most off season way possible with mailbag questions. This one here is regarding, I guess, sort of like the biggest development of the Toronto Raptors off season. And this one comes from Nico asking, Masai statue, when, where, and what? A great question. Of course, Masai Ujiri's firing, probably the biggest story of the Raptors summer outside of, drafting Colin Murray-Boyles. Yeah, it wasn't a very busy summer, but the question here from Nico, I think, look, there's one answer. It is Masai Ujiri dropping the mic after dropping the F Brooklyn thing before the 2013-14 playoffs against the Brooklyn Nets, and the statue actually belongs outside Barclays Center, just to remind the Nets of their place in the NBA as Masai Ujiri stands there lording over him. Yes, I know the Nets won that series. Doesn't matter to me. The history remembers the Toronto Raptors of that era far more fondly. So Masai Ujiri in front of Barclays Center, dropping a mic saying F Brooklyn. That to me is about the most aggro and adversarial way you could do this statue. You could do one in Toronto as well. There's all kinds of things. There's some sort of just like in the tunnel, arms crossed pose, leaning against the tunnel wall with like Kayla Gray standing nearby. That was always a classic image of Masai Ujiri. You could do that, but no, it's clearly the mic drop moment. Maybe you do that in the square as well, right where it happened. You have dueling mirror statues. Maybe there's like a shared medallion that they have that connect one day if you visit both. I don't know. That's the answer. Masai dropping the mic with an F Brooklyn is clearly the statue. And when? Anytime. Probably not going to happen anytime soon because, the whole Rodgers thing and his beef with Ed Rodgers and friends. But I would imagine, I would do it now. Maybe you do it in 5-10 years once maybe some tensions have been eased or something like that. And Masai Ujiri is doing, humanitarian work for the UN or something like that. And it's easy to kind of make the concession of doing the statue of the guy who you pushed out of the franchise because of egos or whatever. This next one here comes from also Nico, who appears a lot in today's show because he sent a whole lot of mailbag questions. Thank you, Nico. Kind of thought we'd go after Malik Monk if he was reasonably gettable. He's pretty gettable, but ain't moving. What's your read on that situation, whether the new Bobby-led front office would pursue that kind of guy? Yeah, earlier in the offseason, I was very in on the idea of pursuing Malik Monk. And I think, for me, I've talked about if the Raptors are going to make a trade involving RJ Barrett, I think the sort of model to follow is something along the lines of the Denver Nuggets trade for Cam Johnson, where they turned a more expensive Michael Porter Jr. into a slightly better player in Cam Johnson, who makes a lot less money, and they were able to do other stuff in the margins to kind of make the thing work. You know, Malik Monk makes about $10 million less than RJ Barrett, and so it would be a nice financial relief while also bringing in someone who does a thing which I think the Raptors badly need, which is dribble and shoot. Handy thing to have around. I don't know why things have gone so sour with Malik Monk in his sort of trade value. I think he's better than your standard like Cam Thomas type score first guard. I think he has like real playmaking chops, and I don't think he's like a miserable defensive player, especially if you were to put him in like a 6-man role. I think he get by just fine, and he really helps your second unit get by. I think he'd really help this Raptors second unit, albeit he'd be another one of the shooting guard brigade. Like you move RJ Barrett out for another shooting guard, and you're just kind of right back at square one. So I think the reason they haven't gone after him is probably just because they have that log jam at the position and they don't want to further log jam it up. And he does have money left on his deal. His player type is a little out of favor right now. I still think, Malik Monk probably a better fit on this roster today than RJ Barrett is. But I do think RJ Barrett, like it's not the Porter for Cam Johnson thing where you're getting a better player back. I think Malik Monk and RJ Barrett at the very best or most generous to Malik Monk are about equal. RJ's maybe a smidge better, but I think Malik does stuff the Raptors could use a little bit more than the stuff RJ Barrett does. I can see what people's mileage would vary on that one, though. But I'm less on that one. I'm all right to kind of wait and probe it out and see what they've got with RJ on the team and see what, come deadline time, maybe there's something there. Don't think there's any rush to go do that right now. This next one here comes from Cause asking, all-time mid-tier Raptor ranking. How would you rank the below list 1 to 5? Jose Calderon, Mo Peterson, Alvin Williams, Antonio Davis, and Andrea Bargnani. Number 1, Jose Calderon for sure. One of the few sort of jerseys I own from that era of Raptors basketball. Loved Jose, loved his hams, loved his three-point shooting and assist to turnover ratio and all that good stuff. Almost an all-star one year. Was a damn good player who just persistently warded off dudes who tried to take his job as the starting point guard. Very admirable. We love Jose Calderon. Clearly number 1. Number 2, I'd probably go Antonio Davis here just because, he was an all-star. He was very good for those teams. A player who I think in the modern NBA would just like not exist. It's kind of wild how things change. It's been 20 plus years. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of evolution in the sport over that time, but certainly very much a guy who was effective in the NBA at the exact exact time that type of player was going to be successful in the NBA. So I'll go Antonio Davis as number 2 here. Very good player. And was, the second best player on those Vince Carter teams, third best player, maybe second best. Kind of crazy. Really good. Number 3 for me, I'm going Alvin Williams here. I think, he has the big playoff moment, of course, against the Knicks, putting them through into the second round for the very first time in franchise history, and was just like a really steady hand for a long time. I'm a sucker for those like classic point guard types who, again, don't really exist anymore. And another one of these player archetypes that seems to be kind of phasing out of the league. But Alvin Williams was around a long time and was just like a really solid starter on those Vince Carter teams. And I have a lot of good memories of Alvin Williams, including, again, that big shot he hit against the Knicks to push the Raptors through into the next round of the playoffs. Was it the Pistons? God, now I'm forgetting who they beat in the playoffs. I'm a loser. I think it was the Pistons now that I'm thinking about it. Alvin Williams, playoff winning shot. This is embarrassing. I'm a mess. It was the Knicks. What am I talking about? I'm talking myself in circles here. Anyway, let's go to the number 4 on this list. It's Mo Peterson for me. Like, I know people love Mo Peterson. I've always been kind of a Mo Peterson, not like skeptic. I've just been always a little bit more apathetic about Morris Peterson and the Mo Pete experience in Toronto than most people seem to be. I think he was the benefactor of being one of the very few guys who was just around a long time for the Toronto Raptors at a time where guys being around a long time was not really a thing. And so, yeah, he accrued a lot of counting stats. He accrued a lot of like all-time franchise metrics for, a young franchise at the time. He seemed to like being here, but I always felt like his overall like quality as a basketball player wasn't quite what it was made out to be. And, I've said before, like, give me Anthony Parker over Morris Peterson. If we're taking mid-2000s Toronto Raptors wings, give me Anthony Parker all day long as like a better version of that type of player for the Raptors who, affected winning a little more effectively and all that stuff. So, yeah, like Mo Pete, nothing against Mo Pete. I just have him fourth on this list of guys. And then fifth, it's Bargs. It's a shame. Bargs and I, we could have been pals. He wears the same number that I like to wear in sports, number 7. He has the same birthday as me, which is great. I still DM Andrea Bargnani every single year on our birthday to say happy birthday. I've yet to receive a response on Instagram from him. And I know he's there on Instagram because he's got like the most incredible Instagram profile of all time. I think that's an old episode of Locked On Raptors we did. If you want to go look back at the past, Katie and Heindl and I went through all the different occupations Andrea Bargnani lists on his Instagram page and, discussed how well he would do at all of them if they were actually real. Great. Really like missed opportunity here for Andrea Bargnani. Could have been the guy, could have been number 1 on this list in a different world, but he's number 5 because the man simply did not care about playing basketball. We'll come back on the other side. We got some more questions. We're going to talk about Jonathan Mobo and fatherhood, and then, a whole bunch of weird ones from you weirdos. We'll do that to continue on our emptying the mailbag end of off-season special coming up here in just a sec. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's a lot of fun. And if you're not a football fan, you, of course, can do this for all kinds of sports. Use those bonus bets to throw some money down on an NBA futures pick. You think an over-under is really going to hit that you feel very strongly about? You can do that. You can parlay a few over-unders that you feel strongly about. I think the Raptors are going to hit their over. And I'm not just saying this as a homer. I just think their over-under is pretty low in the mid to high 30s. I think they're going to win more than that. And you can win some money if you think so too, and they end up doing just that. You can do awards picks. There's obviously the NHL season coming up as well if you want some futures bets there. And then the MLB playoffs are near as well. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting the FanDuel.com website to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Go check them out. Get them $300 in bonus bets. Back at it here on your emptying the mailbag edition of Locked On Raptors, closing out the week. I'm headed on vacation next week. We got all kinds of good stuff lined up, crossover episodes with Locked On friends and another friend who's not at Locked On, but does another great podcast, and Trill Bro Dude, talking about all kinds of teams in the Eastern Conference. The week after that, just a heads up, Vivek Jacob is going to come back. Those who have missed Big V over the last 6 weeks or so since I got back in the mix, 5 weeks, I don't know, time is fake. He is going to host Monday through Thursday the following week. I'll be back on the Friday, and then we're off and running. And I think Media Day is like a week after that. It's very close. The preseason is like a month away. It's thrilling. The preseason, not so thrilling, but the prospect of basketball being played is thrilling. Next question here, as we rattle through the so many questions that came in. Skip to My Lou asks, has fatherhood changed your outlook on Jonathan Mobo? You know what? Becoming a new father, I'm learning more patience. I'm learning to sort of expect unexpected milestones and growth in areas that I maybe wasn't anticipating, at times where I wasn't anticipating. All of a sudden, little guy, little baby smiles when you weren't really expecting him to start smiling. Little guy lifts his head up and holds his head beautifully during tummy time. And you're just like so proud and beaming at these little incremental pieces of growth and development. If my little baby can have incremental pieces of growth and development, why can't Jonathan Mobo? Why is Jonathan Mobo being rushed along? Let him go at his own pace, and maybe he one day too will sprout into, I don't know, like a pretty fine eighth man. Next question here, mail brag question from Loquacious Drew asking, what's the one sports accomplishment you're most proud of? Look, covering sports, there's lots I'm proud of because I've done a lot of stuff. I've been very lucky over my 10 or so years doing this thing. Hosting this podcast for 10 seasons is pretty damn cool. proud of that. I've been covering CBL games as a play-by-play guy for a long time. That's cool. I wrote a book when the Raptors won a championship. That was awesome too. But we're talking about real sports, baby, on the field of play, biggest accomplishments. There's a couple I guess I could go into. There aren't many here. When I was in university, first of all, important context, I'm not a very good skater. In fact, you could argue that I can't skate by sort of Canadian standards of being a good skater. But when I was in, I think, third and fourth year university, I kind of joined my friend's intramural hockey team like as a bit because I just wanted to hang out with my pals and I thought it'd be funny. And so I was on the team and I scored like 3 goals in 20 games, just like standing next to the net and being in the right place at the right time. Pretty proud of that. On my first goal, I scored and I like the power of the shot, which wasn't very powerful, but just like the power of the shot made me kind of fall, and I managed to turn it into a dive celebration very coolly. And I've just revealed it now that was actually what happened here. It was, if my friends are listening, which I don't think they are, that was not at all planned or intentional. It just was gravity. So yeah, that's one. There were some good house league titles, playing for Willowdale Park and Oshawa Park League soccer back in the day. We were a pretty good little team for a couple of years there. That was fun. I had a 10-goal season once. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, this is the depths we're stooping to. I'm remembering when I was 9 years old scoring goals in Park League soccer. This is how good I am at sports. I think the most recent one, I played in the Brody men's league in Burlington about a year ago. And, for a time, I had the highest 3-point percentage of high volume shooters in the league for like the first half of a season before I hit a big cold streak. But for a while, you could go and see like best 3-point percentage, like 33.5%. Sean, top of the board, baby. So yeah, I can shoot a little bit. That's maybe my greatest accomplishment is sometimes when I'm at pickup, people get mad when people forget to guard me because I can, in fact, bang a triple or two. Next one up, this one comes from Nico again. If there's a Raptors take you could be known for, past or present, what would it be? Interesting question. I think there's already one I am kind of known for, which is It's Fine. From my writing days back in sort of the late 2010s into this podcast, basically over the last 10 years, I have very much been of the mind that, overreaction to stuff happening in basketball, kind of not necessary. The Raptors have won a championship. Everything is fine to me for the next, 25 years. And I try not to ride the ups and downs and highs and lows too aggressively or too emotionally. And so, yeah, I would say it's fine, or things just being fine has kind of been the thing I've been known for. And I'm glad to be known for that because I think, sports fandom can get pretty volatile, pretty, emotional. And hey, that's part of it. That's all fun. But I do like to feel like I'm the person who you can come to for just like, coming back to the middle a little bit and just being, normal about the sports thing that happened. That probably is not the end of the world at the end of the day. Also, one take that I think, it's sort of the Rorschach test for me. Kyle Lowry is one of like the 10 most impactful players of the 2010s in the NBA. And if you don't think so, you're a rube. Next up, Nico asks, Nico, just volume shooter in here. And some pretty good ones. What's your go-to diner breakfast order? Used to be Eggs Benedict. I used to be a big Eggs Benny guy. Kind of fell off hollandaise sauce a little bit. It's not so much the thing I'm enjoying these days. I'm sure I'll get back into it at some point. I had such a good, man. You ever have a food and it's just so good that you don't want to have it from any other place because you're just not going to have it the same level? There's a restaurant, I'm not sure if it still exists. It's on Ossington and Queen in Toronto called Fonda Lola. If it's still there, shout out Fonda Lola. It's great. I don't live there anymore, so I haven't been in probably 10 years. But these are like a Mexican brunch place, and they had a delicious like pulled pork eggs Benny with carnitas and like a beautiful salsa verde, and it was just so damn delicious that I kind of retired from eggs Benny after that. And so now I'm more of just like give me your classic plate of stuff. Give me your I like beans on my plate of breakfast. Give me sausage. I'm not much of a bacon guy, not much of a ham guy. Give me some over easy eggs, maybe some scrambled eggs. I'm more of an over easy guy. Give me some toast. Pretty basic at a diner breakfast for sure. Next one here. Oh, by the way, breakfast burrito. If there's a good breakfast burrito, I will have that. But that's not always something you can find, and they're not always good. Last one here from Matt T before we get to another break. Matt asks, what are the best jersey designs in Raptors history? There are a couple answers here. One is the purple front, black back throwback they wore last year. It's a great jersey, and the court they had to accompany it was fantastic. And if they don't make that a full-time look, which it seems like they're maybe not going to for this year, I think it's a travesty that we only saw that court like 6 or 7 times, maybe 10 at the most. I don't even think it was that many. And that jersey should be worn all the damn time because it's really good and it's very unique. And you don't see that sort of 2 colors front and back thing very often, but it looks great. And yeah, I love that jersey. It's the one Vince Carter wore during the dunk contest. It's pretty fantastic. I do think the Raptors jerseys from like the title run era, not even the title run, but just like the 50 win run era were just pretty sharp, kind of minimalist, but they had some nice little details. They actually had a nice subtle use of the chevron as opposed to just being like chevron, arrow, north on the middle of the jersey. Not my favorite look. I'm pretty over the chevron. I think a lot of people are, but I liked the subtle in the trim on the sides that they had back during the era of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan and all that. Some good looks in there. And then, of course, just like the classic Raptor, man, just give me a gigantic cartoon on a jersey and I'm happy. Like we all established that we got it right in the 1990s with jerseys. Go back to that, because why must we do everything as though it's like a, minimalist design of an app on your phone for every single jersey in the league? I'm over it. It stinks. We'll come back on the other side. We'll rattle off, I don't know, like 10 more questions. Oh, man, we got so many. We will wrap it up and go rapid fire through the remaining questions and your end of offseason emptying the mailbag edition of the show coming up in just one sec. Wrapping it up here. And the next one here comes from Duncan, who asks, how did you meet your frequent co-hosts Vivek and Katie? And at what point did you know there were people you wanted to continually have on? Were they friends first or friendship through hoops? I think definitely friendship through hoops. Katie, I know the first time we chatted was just like on a podcast. Like I reached out because I think she wrote something I liked at Raptors Republic and she came on the pod and we hit it off quite nicely. And I think had very similar sensibilities. We of course went on to host a different basketball podcast for a couple of years, sort of around the pandemic. Basketball. It was fun. It was silly and very much, I think, in line with sort of the way we both see the sport. And yeah, I've loved having Katie on ever since we first started chatting. I think back in like 2017. It's been a long time. Yeah, Katie, one of my better friends in the entire world. We love Katie. And then Vivek too. Again, one of my better friends. We also met, I think, through covering basketball. I think through like Will Liu might be sort of the connection there. But yeah, all just sort of covering the team. And then, he came on the podcast, really enjoyed having him on the podcast and said, hey, why don't you come on the podcast more? And he did. And it was great. And, they were both at my wedding. They're both very good friends of mine. We go out and do stuff whenever we can, even though I'm living far away from them out in Hamilton while they're in Toronto. But yeah, no, that's basically the story. We had similar sensibilities about the sport we covered for work and became work friends who, will probably be friends for a good long time unless they get sick of me, which is always possible. Next one here comes from Psychic asking, Sean, what do you think about slam ball? More slam ball, please. Bring it back. Spike TV. You had it right back in the day. Would it be better if the NBA were just slam ball instead? I'm not going to say no. Dunks are the best. Trampoline dunks are incredible. Yes, it was horribly dangerous. Yes, there were all kinds of just like gruesome injuries that came out of slam ball. But that's why you wear the pads, baby. And there's no glory without the guts. Slam ball rules. Great question, Psychic. Bring back slam ball. Give me a Toronto team so I can go and support it. Next up, Nico. What would a Woodley value menu for Scotiabank concessions look like? Abolish the $22 bad roti. You get to build the menu and prices out from scratch. This is a thing that I'm really, really hoping becomes more of a trend in pro sports. Am I hopeful that MLSE is going to make things affordable? Not necessarily, but man, it would be cool because I actually think it would. Look, I'm not an accountant. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I feel like if you made things more affordable, more people would buy things in probably larger volumes and you might make more money at the end of the day. The way concessions have been just totally inflated price-wise at not just Scotiabank Arena, but basically every sports venue you go to, it sucks. Like I am never ordering like a meal at an arena or stadium ever again, unless things change. I am someone who will eat before and I will maybe get a beer at a game, but I'll do my drinking that I need to do before the game or, have whatever substances I want before the game. and just kind of ride it out throughout the game, because it's not worth paying that much money for stuff that you're getting rinsed for. And maybe I'm more principled than others. Maybe others are happy to go and pay $14 for a hot dog. That ain't me. Like I think you see with the Blue Jays, like Looney Dog Day is a sensation. It's disgusting. Never be on the train when it's Looney Dog night. I'll tell you that. On the way home from a Jays game, I was on there a couple times after Raptors games this year after Looney Dog night, and it's a miserable existence because it just stinks like farts. But like people are buying like 90,000 hot dogs a night. That's seemingly a good way to get people to buy your stuff, is to price it competitively, even though, yes, you have a monopoly on it. Yes, it's impossible to, sort of convince these people that you don't need to charge top dollar for every single thing just because you can. We've seen, I think, Matt Ishbia, like the Phoenix Suns do all kinds of bad things, but Matt Ishbia with the Suns has made it a mission of his to make because concessions more affordable at Phoenix's arena. I think that's great. The Baltimore Ravens, I know the question came out of this. The Baltimore Ravens went about making concessions cheaper. They have like a value menu. For me, like, yeah, it doesn't got to be crazy. Hot dog, $2, burger, $5, like, have some cheap beers. The Blue Jays, if you find the one stand where they sell like $5 Bud cans, that's actually great. And the line is always long because people want to buy more of them. And I'm usually buying more of them when I'm there. It's great to get people to buy more things. Again, not a financial advisor or an accountant, but just kind of using common sense here. Give me a bag of chips at a game. Like I could just like a family sized bag of chips to sit and eat at a game. What a world that would be. Make it $3. Like, just make it what it costs at the store. Why not do that? I feel like it would be a really good thing to just, and again, if you want to go have your elaborate, fancy, $35 lobster roll burger, fine. That's cool. Go nuts. People want to buy it. Great. But like, make something available for the everyman too. Tickets are already so damn expensive. I'm already dreading like bringing my son to sporting events, which I'm going to do because going to sporting events was like my favorite thing as a kid, but dreading like just having to spend all of my money earned in a given week on the sporting event. It's a bummer. And I'm sure a lot of people just like can't do it as a pastime anymore because it's so prohibitively expensive. You probably expand your reach of your fan base and get your fan base more engaged if you made these things more affordable. Again, I'm just a humble person who thinks growth at all costs capitalism kind of sucks. But what do I know? Next one here. This one comes from Queen and Beaverman. Am I mixing up some names of repeat question askers just to make it so it seems like a more popular? Yes. Queen and Beaverman asks, what would Siakam's 2022-23 season have been if he never slipped on the floor in Dallas and pulled his groin? That Pascal was a man on a mission. He was. That season was off to a pretty interesting start. Of course, it ended horribly. I do wonder if Pascal continues to play at that level, which like he was playing at like a first team All-NBA level for the first 10 games of that season. It's just 10 games, but that's what he was doing. He was outstanding. He was doing everything for that team. I think you probably end up, if that sustains and continues, I wonder if they make the trade for Jakob Poeltl or another center a lot sooner. Maybe they target a different center who's a more easy, snug fit. Maybe he plays himself into like, no doubt, yes, we got to extend this guy and build a thing around him and Scotty Barnes and figure out the rest of the roster, which would have taken some figuring, but like he would have been on track for easily his best season as a pro. First team All-NBA is tough to make. Maybe he makes second team All-NBA. Again, we made that back in 2019-20. Kyle Lowry should have made a second team All-NBA that season, but that's fine. Yeah, like that. It would have been cool to see that full season of Pascal Siakam. And hey, maybe we see something similar this year with the Pacers with no Tyrese Halliburton. Wouldn't that be a good time? This one comes from Monsieur Pantaloons asking, railbag question. What is the best seat on the GO train, top or bottom of the cart? Look forward or back, right side or left side? I have a pretty precise method when I ride the GO train. When I'm going into a game, I am on the side of the lake because that's the nicer view. It used to be I used to be a Lakeshore East man back in my Oshawa days. That's a nicer lake view because you're going through Pickering and stuff, and there's all the nice views there, but still a better view when you're on the right side of the train, I guess, when you're coming from Hamilton on the Lakeshore West line. So I'm always on the side of the lake, regardless of what side I'm coming from. When I'm going to a game as well, I'm on the top level. I like it up there. You can see outside, you can catch the views, all that stuff. On the way home, I'm usually on that middle level. You have the lower level, you have like the steps up. There's like 8 seats maybe in that middle level in the top. I'm always going middle level, and I'm always on the right side, not looking at the lake because there's no lake to see. It's dark at night. So yeah, that's my very precise way of going about the go train, and it's objectively correct. Also, you got to find those ones with the outlets. You got to know which cart numbers have the outlets. There's a certain number, if it's like over 2,800 or something like that, the cart, like the car number, that's going to have outlets for you if you need to charge your devices. If it doesn't, if it's lower than that, you're not going to find those outlets, baby. If you need any tips on how to navigate the go train, I've been doing it my entire life. High volume user. I'd love to pass along my wisdom. Next one here comes from Honey Badger D. Honey Badgered. I don't know how we pronounce this one. Do you feel there is a disconnect between the way fans romanticize and purify sports versus the true ruthless capitalist nature it resembles in the top pro leagues? Baby, this is a question for me. Yes, there is a disconnect, and it sucks. I'm someone who is like part and parcel to this disconnect. I try to romanticize sports a little bit. I still think there is joy to be found in maybe not, climbing the mountain all the way and just being good for being good's sake and not being great. Just kind of being content with your station. Like, it's not a very capitalist mindset. I think, the way that we've started to see the league talked about, contract value being everything, optimizing your salary caps, title or bust mentality. That to me is all very capitalism brain thinking. And for me, like, that's just not how I choose to engage with the sport. But it very clearly is how a lot of people choose to engage with the sport. And it's tough. Like, it's hard to navigate sometimes. I find myself having to toe that line, honestly, like every day when I do the podcast. Like, am I talking about this in a way that's going to put off the people who maybe, are the majority of the fan base, who want to have that sort of title or bust mentality, who do view things in very sort of black and white terms? And again, there's no right or wrong way to be a fan, but I do think, we're seeing the romanticization go away a little bit as the sort of slow creep of capitalism comes for sports, as it comes for all the things we enjoy. And yeah, I mean, we're going to see what happens with the Steve Ballmer thing, all of this sort of insane, unimaginable wealth at the top of the league, how that informs decision-making, how that informs how like discipline is handed out, because, Adam Silver is at the whims of all of these extremely rich and powerful people. It's like, I'm hopeful that we can kind of get back to sports being a thing that you kind of like do with your pals and sort of have this cathartic release when your team wins and all of that stuff. And I still think there are lots of people who do engage with sports that way, but I do think that's becoming less of a thing. And it's just because of the way the dynamics of pro sports have changed. They are just becoming a little bit more ruthless in nature. And I think that bleeds down into the fan base, into the people who engage with the sport. It might put some people off of it, right? Like, there's this whole thing right now on like the extreme leftist end of things of like, sports aren't even leftist. You can't be a leftist if you like sports. I think that's wildly extreme. I think you can understand the pitfalls and the downfalls and the sort of nasty underbelly of sports and still have, left-leaning politics if you want to have them. But that's certainly like a growing sort of belief, because like there's a lot of nasty stuff that goes on in sports. There's a lot of really ruthless, gross underbelly stuff that's tough to square sometimes. And I think as that becomes sort of, as just sort of the, again, the pure ruthless capitalism brain continues to take over how these sports leagues are ruled and governed and operate, it becomes harder and harder to like be the small voice being like, this is bad and stupid, make it stop, when everything else is just kind of drowning it out. So yeah, there's certainly a disconnect there, and I feel it every single day. I still love sports. What I will say is I have very much started to like appreciate like just sports that are not professionalized. My favorite engagement with sports, I play pickup basketball once or twice a week with friends from the neighborhood, and it's my favorite way to engage with sports. I coach 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds at my wife's school during the year playing basketball. That is a wonderful way to engage with sports. Like, sports doesn't always just have to be what you see at the professional levels, what's on ESPN. There's a lot of sports that are not commodified like the pro leagues are, that I think is a way that I kind of get back in touch with the stuff I really love. Like playing sports with your friends, it rocks. You should do it more. Last one here, Duncan. If there was a way of adding home court advantage, adding to the home court advantage, what's something you'd add to Scotiabank Arena? Examples: Lucas Oil Stadium, the place where the Colts play. Let's light through a window that causes issues with opposing teams going down the field. There's also the Wall and Intuit Dome with the screaming fans trying to mess with the players shooting free throws. I've always liked the idea. This is a great question. I've always loved the idea of just like random strategically placed dead spots in a basketball floor where someone dribbles and the ball just dies, and you only know about them if you're the home team. Like you have the map of them before the game, and your defense can be like about funneling ball handlers towards these dead spots so you can scoop up the ball as it doesn't bounce back up into the hand of the basketball player who has it in their hand. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. I'm always down for mascot chicanery. Like I think Devin Booker being too afraid to shoot free throws with the Raptor bearing down on him is hilarious. One of the funnier things we've seen in recent Raptors history. More of that. Like get the giant inflatable Raptor out there causing trouble. Swapping out Gatorade for laxatives on the benches, on the opposing team's bench, whatever. I think we should have some more chicanery. Getting back to the fun of sports, the romanticism of sports. I think it'd be really funny if basketball players who are ostensibly the most talented people at their craft in the world just ran into strange spots on the floor where the ball didn't bounce back to their hand and they were left completely stunned, and then also had to run to the bathroom because the mascot messed with their drinks. Anyway, that's going to do it. We've gotten through the entire mailbag. Isn't that fun? Thank you to all those who sent in questions. We'll be back again next week for a week full of crossover shows talking about the middle of the pack in the East. Pacers, Pistons, Bucks, Heat, and Sixers. Looking forward to that. Big V will be back in the chair for the 4 days starting the week following. I'll be back Friday the 19th. And then, we are right into the start of the season. Media day very soon, all that good stuff. Cannot wait. Thank you for rocking with the show and for being here throughout the entire offseason of 3 shows a week. It's been, I wasn't here for a lot of it because I was taking care of a child, but Big V was here and that was great. And he was awesome. And he'll be back again in a couple weeks' time. In the meantime, thank you so much for hanging out, rocking with the show. I do not seem to have my basketball on hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a shot with Slider, the Cleveland Guardians mascot. Yes, that's all I have to throw at the basketball net. We'll see if I can score the mascot into the net. Anyway, thanks so much for rocking with the show. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Always appreciated when you support the show, however it is you choose to support it. And we'll talk to you again on Monday as we're talking Pacers with Tony East of Locked On Pacers. Have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.